At my sister's wedding, a security guard stopped me at the steps. He held up 2 photos. My children's faces, each stamped in black ink, "Do not admit." Behind him, guests laughed, champagne glasses, clinking camera flashes, catching the perfect light. My father looked away. My stepmother smiled like it was logistics, not cruelty. My 6-year-old asked Mom, "Did we do something bad?" I didn't answer. I handed over the gift envelope and turned around. They thought they'd erased me from their perfect day. They didn't know by sunset their celebration would turn into a reckoning, and I wouldn't have to say a single word. I teach yoga for a living, morning classes at the studio, private sessions in the afternoons, and online ones after my kids go to bed. It's quiet work, calm work, the kind of life where you can hear your own thoughts. I used to think that was peace. Now I know it was just silence I hadn't questioned yet. My name is Rachel. I'm 34, married to Ethan, and we live in a small townhouse where towels never stay on their hooks, and the shoe basket never has the pair you need. We have 2 kids, Noah 6, who carries a dinosaur flashlight everywhere, and Ella 3, who calls strawberries red moons. Our home isn't perfect, but it's ours. The kind of messy warmth that smells like coffee crayons and laundry detergent. Then there's my family, the one that never felt like mine. My father David remarried when I was 12. He used to tell me family is everything, which usually meant don't make things difficult. My stepmother Kira runs our family like a luxury brand. White tablecloth dinners, perfect lighting, and a tone of voice that sounds kind until you listen to the words. And my half-sister Lila, 26, an influencer who calls herself a lifestyle muse. Everything she touches is beige, curated, and filtered. Growing up, Kira called me the strong one. It sounded like praise. It wasn't. It was permission to use me. I carried boxes, fixed chaos, cleaned up messes that weren't mine. When Kira wanted calm, she sent me to soothe my crying baby sister. When Lila wanted attention, she got it. When Dad wanted peace, I gave it to him by swallowing mine. So when Kira called this past May and said, "We need to talk about the wedding," I already knew what that meant. I was at the studio wiping down mats, the air still warm from class. She started with her usual melody, how everything was coming together beautifully. Then her tone shifted soft and heavy, like a hand pressing on my shoulder. "Lila's venue needs a deposit," she said. They mentioned Friday. I didn't respond right away. I'd learned silence could buy me time. "You always step up. Rachel," she added. The same line she'd used since I was 15. And just like that, I felt the old reflex rise, the urge to help, to fix, to keep things smooth. Dinner that night was a performance as always. Kira's table glittered under soft light. Lila arrived half an hour late, glowing like a commercial. Her fiancé Parker followed behind, her polished rich, the kind of man who calls waiters buddy. Kira had a binder, of course. She opened it like scripture, revealing glossy pages of venues, flower arrangements, catering menus, all with prices printed neatly beside them. $30,000 in total. She said it casually, like the weather. "Just the deposit, sweetheart," she told me. "You can handle that, right?" My husband Ethan looked at me across the table. He didn't say no, but his eyes did. My father raised his glass and said, "Family comes through for family." Lila smiled and added, "It's for love, Rachel." That word love always seemed to mean open your wallet. On the drive home, Ethan was quiet. "You don't have to keep fixing them," he said finally. "I know," I whispered, but I didn't stop. The next morning, I transferred the deposit, half our savings. I told myself it was temporary, that it would come back, that doing right would keep the peace. I didn't know then that peace in our family only existed when I was paying for it. The weeks after that dinner blurred into a slow, familiar pattern, texts from Kira, calls from Lila, and my own guilt disguised as responsibility. Every message had the same rhythm. "We just need one more thing. You're the only one we can count on. The vendor deal ends tonight." At first I said no. Then I said maybe. Then I said fine. Each payment chipped away at something invisible. Not just the balance in our savings account, but a sense of fairness I didn't realize I still believed in. Ethan watched me transfer money like someone watching a slow accident they couldn't stop. "You're letting them rewrite what family means," he said one night. They're my family, I replied. If I don't help, who will? He looked at me quietly. Maybe that's the point. The requests grew. The florist wanted an early retainer. The DJ had a special rate. The videographer needed a deposit before the next couple booked them. Every time I hesitated, Kira would say, "You always step up," and that sentence, those 4 words, felt like a leash snapping around my neck. At yoga, I told my students to breathe, to let go of tension, to stay grounded. But I was the one floating away. The day I realized how far I'd gone was when Kira texted, "No kids at the wedding. Bride's vision is elevated." I stared at the screen for a full minute. My phone buzzed again, another message. "We'll figure something out for you. We'll figure something out" was code for "you'll bend again." That night over dinner, Noah asked if he could wear his dinosaur tie to Aunt Lila's wedding. He said it with pride, like he'd been invited to something big. Of course I told him, forcing a smile. Ethan watched me. He didn't say a word. Days passed. More invoices arrived. More reminders. I started keeping a list on my phone. Venue deposit $12 or $800, catering $8, $750, florist $2, $200, string duo $1, $600, DJ $1, $500, content team $2, $500, 30 grand. Neat, complete. Quiet theft dressed as gratitude. Then came the rehearsal dinner. Kira texted that morning, adults only. Less chaos. Ethan offered to stay home with the kids, but I told him I'd be fine. I wasn't. The moment I walked in, the air changed. Everyone was smiling too much. Lila was glowing in white. My father was playing the proud parent. Kira was in full hostess mode, hugging guests she barely liked. I stood in the corner holding a glass of water like it was armor. Lila came up to me, mid-toast, her hand brushing my arm. "Rach, just so you know, the kids might not be comfortable at the venue. There's so much glass and, well, it's kind of high-end." "High-end," I repeated. She blinked. "Yeah, it's not really kid-proof." Something inside me went cold. "So you're saying my children don't belong?" "Oh, don't make it dramatic," she said, smiling for the guests nearby. "It's just the vibe." The vibe. That word, her whole life. I left early. No scene, no tears. Just the long drive home with the car radio off. Ethan was waiting at the table when I walked in. "What happened?" I shook my head. "They think our kids ruin the vibe." He exhaled slow. "Then maybe it's time we ruin theirs." I didn't sleep that night. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about how peace used to mean obedience, how family had become a tax I kept paying. The next morning, I didn't send the last payment. Kira called within hours. "Sweetheart, we need to lock in the content team today." "I'll think about it," I said. "You know how stressful weddings are, then maybe you should have planned better," I replied before hanging up. It was the first time I'd ever hung up on her. The silence afterward felt like oxygen. I didn't know it yet, but that small act, refusing to send one more dollar, was the first crack in their perfect picture. And cracks have a way of spreading. The silence didn't last. By the next morning, my voicemail was full. One from Kira, fake tears, trembling voice. One from Dad lecturing about doing the right thing. And one from Lila, half crying, half offended that I would make this harder than it needs to be. I ignored them all. That night, Ethan and I sat at the kitchen table, the kids asleep upstairs. The glow from the fridge light fell across our unpaid bills, my yoga class rosters, and the envelope marked wedding expenses. "I can't keep funding people who wouldn't even let our children in the room," I said. Ethan leaned back. "Then stop trying to explain it. Just document everything. Make it real." So I did, line by line, each transfer, each receipt. I wasn't being petty. I was keeping proof. For years, Kira's power came from gaslighting. She'd rewrite every story until you doubted your own memory. But numbers don't lie. A few days later, my phone lit up with a message from Lila Final payment, due tomorrow. "Thank you, sis." I stared at the text, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Then I typed back, "I've already paid more than anyone else. That's my final contribution." The typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, came back. Then, "Don't make this ugly, Rachel. We're family." Family. That word again, always used as a weapon. I put my phone down. Ethan smiled slightly. "That's the sound of a boundary, but boundaries don't stay quiet in my family." 2 days later, Kira showed up at my studio. She looked flawless, cream blazer hair, pinned tight smile, sharpened like glass. My students had just left. The room still smelled faintly of lavender spray and sweat. Rachel, she began softly like she was comforting a patient. We're all under pressure. Lila's falling apart. Your father's heart can't handle the stress. Why are you doing this to us, to you, I said. I paid for half your daughter's wedding. Her lips twitched. You're overreacting. It's just money. It's never just money, it's respect. For a moment, her mask slipped. Then she leaned closer, voice sugar sweet again. You'll regret turning your back on family. I held her gaze. No, I regret waiting this long. She left without another word. The door clicked shut, and I stood there shaking not from fear, but from release. That evening, I drafted an email to Kira, David, Lila, and Parker. Subject: wedding contributions. Breakdown and balance. I listed every expense, every date, every transfer. Then at the bottom, I wrote, as of today, total paid $29,350. You have denied entry to my children at the event I financed. I expect repayment in full. 12 months, first installment due next month. This isn't about revenge. This is about closure. I read it twice before hitting send. Ethan put his hand on my shoulder. You okay? I nodded. For the first time, yes. The next morning, my father texted, let's talk privately, sweetheart. Lila posted a story, her wedding countdown, smiling under fairy lights. They still thought I'd stay quiet. They didn't realize that silence when chosen can be the loudest sound in the room. The wedding day arrived like a storm pretending to be sunshine. The morning light streamed through our kitchen window, cutting across the cereal bowls and half-packed bags. Noah wore his little dinosaur tie, proud and wrinkled. Ella twirled in her blue dress, her hair full of uneven curls because she'd insisted on doing it herself. I watched them and thought maybe they'll remember the drive, not the people waiting for us there. Ethan adjusted his collar. You don't have to go, he said quietly. I do, I told him. Just not for them. The venue was 30 minutes away, a restored barn turned into a luxury wedding site, all white walls and fairy lights and curated fields of grass. We drove in silence. The sky was perfect, the kind that photographers call cinematic. I remember thinking how cruel it was that beauty could hide so much ugliness. When we reached the top of the gravel path, the security guard stepped forward. His suit was too formal, his smile too polite. Afternoon, he said. Can I have your name, Rachel? I hesitated. And these are my children, Noah and Ella. He looked down at his clipboard, then pulled out a clear plastic sleeve. Inside were 2 color photos, Noah's school portrait, Ella with her pigtails. Across each face, bold letters read, do not admit. I felt the world tilt. Where did you get those? My voice sounded foreign, too calm. He glanced toward the entrance. Bride's request. No minors inside. Liability policy. There's no policy. I said, that's my son and daughter. He shifted uneasily. Ma'am, I don't make the rules. Behind him, I saw Kira step out of the doorway, every inch composed. Rachel, she said, like we were discussing the weather. It's not personal, it's just for the aesthetic. Candles, glassware, you understand. My father was a shadow behind her, looking anywhere but at me. And from just inside the barn, I caught a glimpse of Lila in white, perfect trembling, peeking like she was scared to smudge her own illusion. Noah tugged my hand. Mom, did we do something bad I couldn't answer? Because anything I said would have cracked my voice wide open. Maya's no, Ethan's hand brushed mine. I felt his pulse steady and angry. I handed Kira the envelope we'd prepared. Congratulations, I said. My tone was even quiet surgical. Then I turned. The gravel crunched under our shoes. The wind shifted. Behind us, laughter resumed, nervous, brittle. In the car, Noah asked if we were still going to the party. Ella hummed a song she made up about frogs. I just drove. The farther we got from that barn, the easier it was to breathe. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but instinct made me swipe. Rachel, a deep voice said. This is Adam, Parker's father. I pulled over, glanced at Ethan. Yes, I just saw the list, Adam said. The one with your children's photos. My throat tightened. I didn't send it. I know. And I'm calling to tell you the wedding is off. My family won't be part of this circus. Silence. Then he added, his tone colder. They're on their way to your house to beg. Don't open the door." He hung up before I could speak. 2 hours later, the knocking started. Sharp, desperate. "Rachel." It was Lila's voice, high-pitched, breaking. "Please, let's talk." Behind her, I could hear Kira's controlled tone, the kind she used when she wanted the world to think she was still in charge. "Be reasonable, Rachel. This can be fixed." My father's voice came last small, tired. "Sweetheart, open up." Ethan met my eyes across the room. I didn't move. The knocks grew louder, then quieter, then stopped. Instead, the phone started buzzing, calls, voicemails, texts. I flipped mine face down on the counter. We made grilled cheese sandwiches. Noah dipped his in ketchup. Ella called hers cheese circles. The world felt small again, safe. At 6:14, Kira left a voicemail that began like an apology and ended like a threat. "You embarrassed us," she hissed. "You owe us a conversation. You owe us." At 7:03, Adam called again. "I've canceled every vendor my side paid for," he said. "I won't bankroll cruelty. You'll get partial refunds within 48 hours. Send me your totals." I opened my laptop. The cursor blinked on a blank email waiting. I typed out the numbers, each one like a heartbeat returning to me. Venue $12, $800. Catering, $8, $750. Florist, $2, $200. Strings, $1, $600. DJ, $1, $500. Content team, $2, $500. Total, $29, $350. Then I wrote the truth. "You denied entry to the event I financed by posting my children's faces under Do Not Admit. I expect repayment in full, 12 months. First payment due next month." This isn't about revenge. This is about closure. I sent it to all of them, Dad, Kira, Lila, Parker, and CC'd Adam. Responses flooded in within minutes. Kira, "How dare you threaten your family? Dad, we can talk privately, sweetheart." Lila, 12 months, LOL. "We're not a bank." Parker, "Give me time to figure things out." Ethan read them with me. "Clear," he said softly. "Good." The next evening, my father showed up in person. He didn't knock long. When I opened the door, he looked smaller than I remembered. "This got out of hand," he said. "You could have handled it quietly." "They printed my kids' faces, Dad," I said. "That's not a mistake. That's a message." He rubbed his temple, sighing. "You could have stayed. For your sister." "You mean for the performance?" I said. "Peace without respect isn't peace, it's silence." He blinked, confused by how calm I sounded. "I don't recognize you," he murmured. "I know," I said. "For once, I recognize myself." He left without slamming the door. That, I decided, was progress. The following morning, Kira posted a long Facebook caption about protecting your joy from jealous people. My cousin sent me a screenshot. I didn't reply. At noon, Adam's email came through, refund summary attached. He'd clawed back $6 and $200 and wired it to me. The note read, "Applied to your totals. Parker will cover the rest. If he doesn't, I will. I won't be associated with people who blacklist toddlers." For the first time in weeks, I laughed. A real laugh. Days turned into weeks. Lila's tone shifted from rage to guilt to bargaining. "Let's talk like adults," she texted. 10 minutes later, wow, ignoring me, power trip much. Then a photo of her red eyes captioned, "This is what you did." I didn't respond. Instead, I kept teaching. I told my students to breathe into the discomfort, to find strength in stillness. What I didn't tell them was that I was finally learning to do it too. Then one afternoon, Lila showed up at my studio door, sunglasses, bun, trembling hands. She took them off, eyes swollen. "You made a scene," she said. "You made a list," I replied. "It wasn't personal. It was a picture of my son," I said. "You let it exist." She exhaled, voice cracking. "Mom says you've always hated me." "I've always paid for you," I said. "There's a difference." She looked down. "So what now?" I folded my arms. "We say hello at birthdays. We don't exchange money. We don't use guilt as love." Lila nodded slowly, like a student hearing a lesson too late. "Parker and I got married at the courthouse yesterday," she said. "You weren't invited." "Good," I said. She blinked, caught off guard by how little that hurt me. "They'll keep paying," she said. "Good," I repeated, because this time good wasn't surrender. It was freedom. By autumn, the payments came on schedule, small digital echoes of accountability. Each month, a quiet ping in my inbox, transfer received. The memo lines almost made me smile. For peace, for closure, for lesson learned. By the 9th month, the final deposit cleared. Adam sent one last email, applied remaining vendor credit. Your balance is 0. You did right by your family. That matters. I stared at the words until they blurred. Then I opened my old note labeled Lila Wedding and typed one last line, balance $0. I didn't delete it. Some records deserve to stay. That night, my father invited us for a barbecue. I almost said no, but Ethan looked at me and I nodded. The backyard smelled like charcoal and rain. Dad flipped burgers. He looked older, quieter. He asked Noah about school, asked Ella what her favorite color was. Finally, he turned to me. You're different, he said. I'm better, I replied. He nodded as if that was a door he might finally walk through. On the drive home, the sky turned soft and orange. Ethan reached across the console, squeezed my hand. You did it, he said. I didn't fix them, I said. I fixed me. At home, Noah chased Ella through the hallway. Towels fell from their hooks. Shoes scattered everywhere. Ordinary chaos, the kind that's ours alone. Peace. This time didn't feel like silence. It felt earned. Some people still say I overreacted, that it was just a wedding, but those people have never seen their children's faces printed under the words, "Do not admit." I didn't slam doors. I didn't shout. I just stopped standing where I was told to stand. That was enough. Being the good daughter used to mean staying quiet no matter the cost. Now it means protecting my kids, my peace, and the home we built. If you've ever had to draw that line, if you've ever walked away instead of bowing down, share your story. You're not alone. You'll never amount to anything. Just give up. What would you do if someone said that to you while your bank account quietly held $5 million? Well, that's what my sister said, loud enough for every cousin at the birthday table to snicker under their breath, loud enough for my parents to lower their eyes and pretend it was a joke. My aunt leaned in, whispering, "By the way, my company's hiring." My uncle smirked. The room pulsed with their silence, waiting for me to break. I didn't. I pressed my hands together under the table, felt my nails dig into my skin, and made a vow. They thought I had nothing. What none of them knew was that one day, with a single swipe on my phone, I would make their laughter stop. My name is Emily Carter. I'm 29, the forgotten child, as some relatives like to joke when they think I can't hear. I used to sit in this very dining room staring at the walls covered with Sophia's trophies and framed college degrees. Every photo seemed to tell the same story. She was the star and I was the shadow. Our parents never meant to be cruel, but their silence carried weight. Whenever Sophia bragged about her promotion or her new condo, Mom would beam with pride. Dad would raise his glass. When I mentioned my work freelance consulting, long hours, late nights, they nodded politely, then changed the subject. To them, real success was something you could brag about at church on Sunday. And since I kept mine quiet, they assumed it didn't exist. I remember one Thanksgiving especially clear. The smell of cinnamon rolls filled the kitchen plates, piled high with turkey and mashed potatoes. My mother leaned across the table, glass in hand, and toasted Sophia, "To the child who never lets us down." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. My cousins clapped. My aunt whispered something smug, and I smiled like it didn't sting. But inside, I memorized every word. What they never noticed was what happened after those dinners when I drove home alone. I would park in front of my tiny apartment, the air conditioner rattling through the vents, and open my laptop. While they slept, I studied markets, built portfolios, tested strategies, and made mistakes that cost me every dollar I had. I ate instant noodles for weeks, pawned jewelry I once loved, and sat awake at dawn wondering if I'd chosen the wrong path. But I didn't quit. Years stacked up. Quiet years. Years when family believed Sophia had it all and I was barely scraping by. They didn't see the contracts slowly piling up, the late-night calls with clients overseas, the spreadsheets that glowed on my screen until my eyes blurred. They didn't see the moment the numbers finally tipped, when red turned to green and the account balance grew beyond anything I had imagined. So I let them laugh. I let them whisper. I let Sophia deliver her lines at every family gathering, each one sharper than the last. I stayed silent, because silence was my cover, my armor. And as I sat at that birthday table, nails biting into my palms, I thought of every sleepless night, every dollar earned, every plan no one knew about. They thought I was nothing. But the truth was already sitting in my pocket, locked behind one simple swipe on my phone. It wasn't just one birthday dinner. The tension had been simmering for years like a pot left too long on the stove. Every family event was another chance for Sophia to jab at me. She did it with a smile, like cruelty was her love language. At Christmas, she handed me a card with a $20 bill tucked inside and said, "For your little projects." Everyone laughed. I smiled, tucked it into my purse, and excused myself to the kitchen before my hands started to shake. At Easter brunch, she clinked her mimosa glass and announced to the whole table, "Emily doesn't believe in real jobs. She's still freelancing." The word dripped with pity, and the room echoed with polite chuckles. My father cleared his throat. My mother adjusted her napkin. No one defended me. I didn't bother to defend myself either. Not yet. Because here's the truth I was tired of fighting on their stage. My war was waged in silence in spreadsheets in the late nights when I built what no one thought I could build. But silence has a cost. Each jab, each whisper, each smug glance pressed heavier on my chest. The turning point came one humid July evening when Sophia's company threw a party at a rooftop bar. Somehow, I ended up on the guest list, probably because my parents begged her to include me. I stood there in a thrift store dress while everyone else glittered in cocktail attire. The skyline stretched behind us, glittering perfect. And then Sophia did what Sophia always does. She raised her glass. To family, she said, eyes locked on me. And to those of us who actually make something of ourselves, the laughter this time wasn't quiet. It was loud, raw, full-throated. I caught my reflection in the tall glass windows alone, out of place, painted as the failure once again. For the first time, my silence felt like a cage. I left early heels in my hand, sweat sticking to the back of my dress. On the subway ride home, my phone buzzed with client messages, numbers, updates. I scrolled through contracts worth more than the annual salaries of half the people laughing at me. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't just surviving, I was ahead, way ahead. That night, I didn't cry. I opened my laptop, stared at the glowing green numbers in my account, and made a decision. I wouldn't keep hiding. They thought my silence meant defeat, but silence can also be strategy. The next time Sophia tried to humiliate me, I wouldn't just stand there. I would let the truth speak for me with one undeniable, unarguable swipe. The fallout from that rooftop party clung to me like cigarette smoke. My mother called the next morning, her voice syrupy, sweet, but edged with disappointment. "Emily, you should try to be more like your sister. People admire her, you know." My father didn't even call. He just sent me a link to a job posting at his friend's accounting firm. A subtle nudge. Another reminder that in their eyes, I hadn't arrived anywhere worth celebrating. I said nothing. I let them believe I was still floundering, still barely getting by. The truth burned inside me, almost unbearable. But I knew something they didn't when pride blinds people. You don't argue, you wait. That night, I drove back to my apartment, unlocked the door, and sank into my chair. My computer hummed as the screen lit up with rows of numbers, graphs, and charts. Contracts signed, deposits cleared. My account balance blinked at me, 507341182. I stared at the number until my chest loosened. That was no accident. That was years of sweat, sacrifice, and silence. But here's the thing about silence, it can crush you or it can sharpen you. I chose the second. I started digging through old folders, contracts, even family records. I found emails Sophia had sent me years ago, mocking me for throwing my life away. I reread texts from my father telling me I was too stubborn to last without a paycheck. Each one of those messages felt like kindling, dry and ready to catch fire. Then the collapse began, not mine, but theirs. A client of Sophia's company reached out to me privately. They'd heard of my firm through a referral and wanted my expertise. Their contract, worth more than Sophia's yearly salary. I signed it quietly. 2 weeks later, another came in, and another. I realized something. While Sophia had been busy polishing her image, I had been building something solid. My foundation was unshakable, hers paper thin. At the same time, my grandmother, who had always been kind to me, confided over tea that she worried about the family's future. She whispered that Sophia and my parents had been dipping into her savings, convincing her it was for the good of the family. My stomach turned. That was more than humiliation. That was theft. I promised her right then that I would not let it stand. From that day forward, my silence wasn't passive anymore. It was deliberate. I contacted a lawyer, laid out every document, every bank statement, every detail of my own earnings, and every whisper of what they'd done to Grandma. He listened, then leaned back and said, "When the time comes, you'll have everything you need." And that was it the moment I shifted. No more being the quiet shadow. No more letting their words define me. The day they laughed at me across the birthday table was the day I realized the next laugh would be mine. The night everything broke open was supposed to be a celebration. My parents called it a family dinner, but everyone knew it was really another stage for Sophia. Her promotion, Dad's retirement, the perfect family on display. The dining room glowed under the chandelier, white tablecloth wine glasses lined like soldiers, a cake with Sophia's name piped in perfect script. I walked in quiet as always and felt a dozen pairs of eyes measure me. "Brave of you to come," Sophia said with a smile sharp enough to cut. Her lipstick caught the light like polished armor. Dad clapped my back. "Maybe tonight you'll hear how real success sounds." I sat down without answering. The air smelled of roast beef and expensive perfume. My aunt leaned over. "By the way, my company's still hiring," she whispered as if humiliation could pass for kindness. The meal rolled on clinking forks, bursts of laughter my name barely mentioned. I kept my hands folded in my lap, listening, watching, waiting. Then Sophia rose. She tapped her glass, soaking in the silence. "Tonight we celebrate hard work," she announced. "People who deliver, not people who dabble, not people who have projects." Her eyes flicked toward me just long enough for everyone to catch it. The laughter this time wasn't polite. It was loud, confident, cruel. My father raised his glass in agreement. For years, I'd let moments like this pass. I'd swallowed the burn and gone home in silence. But tonight was different. Tonight, I was done playing their shadow. I pushed my chair back and stood. The scrape of wood against the floor cut through their laughter. "You want proof." My voice came out, calm, steady. "You've been curious about what I do, haven't you?" Sophia smirked. "Oh God, here we go." I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. One rectangle of glass, one doorway. I swiped open my banking app and turned the screen toward the table. The number glowed under the chandelier, $5.73, 401-982. The room froze. Forks hung mid-air, jokes curdled on lips. My cousin's grin collapsed into silence. My father leaned forward. "What is this, my checking account?" I said simply. Sophia barked out a laugh. "Please, fake screenshots, touch it," I offered, sliding the phone closer. "Go ahead." No one moved. My uncle muttered, $5 million. "In checking." "Not all of it," I said. "Some's elsewhere." The silence that followed was louder than their laughter had ever been. My mother's hand trembled as she set down her glass. The cake's lettering sagged under the heat of the candles. "They thought I was nothing," I said softly. "This is what silence built." Sophia's face tightened. "So what you've been hiding from family I've been working," I corrected, from doubt. Dad's jaw clenched. "If this is real, you should help. Your sister's buying a house. We could—" "No," I said. One word sharp as a blade. My mother flinched. "Emily family shares. That's what family does. Family doesn't raid Grandma's savings," I snapped. The words cut through the air like glass breaking. The chandelier hummed. My father's face drained of color. "Watch your mouth." She told me herself. I pressed on. Transfers, dates, amounts. She was pressured. You called it for the good of the family. That's not family, that's theft. Gasps rippled around the table. My aunt stared at her plate. My uncle set his fork down with a clatter. Before anyone could recover, the front door opened. My lawyer stepped inside a leather folder under his arm. His calm voice sliced through the tension. "Good evening. I'm here for Mr. Carter and Ms. Sophia Carter." Dad rose from his chair. "This is a private dinner." The lawyer smiled politely. "And I won't stay long." He laid 2 envelopes on the table, names printed in bold black letters. Formal notices regarding an elder financial abuse investigation. You'll both be contacted for statements. The room went still. No one laughed. No one whispered. Even the candles seemed to hesitate. "You brought a lawyer to dinner," my mother breathed, horrified. "I brought protection," I said, "for Grandma." Sophia grabbed her envelope but didn't open it. "She's old. She forgets. She misremembers." "She doesn't," I said. "She's careful. She's tired of being silenced. And now she's not alone." My father ripped his envelope open, scanning fast. His voice shook. "This won't hold." "It will," my lawyer replied. "Evidence tends to hold." Sophia's bravado faltered. For once her smirk slipped. Her eyes darted between my parents. That alone was confirmation. I looked around the table at the faces that had waited years to see me break. Now they were the ones unraveling. "You said I'd never amount to anything I told Sophia, but you were wrong. The difference is I built something. You took. That's why this ends here." No one spoke. The only sound was the soft drip of wax on porcelain. I gathered my phone, slipped it back into my purse, and straightened. My knees were steady. My vow made years ago under this very roof was finally fulfilled. I didn't come to humiliate anyone, I said quieter now. I came to stop something. And to tell the truth. The lawyer nodded, closed his folder, and stepped back toward the door. His job here was done. The rest was inevitable. I moved past the table, past their silence, past the weight of years pressing down. At the door I turned once more. "You thought I had nothing," I said. "But with one swipe, I proved you wrong." Then I left them sitting in the glow of their own disbelief, the taste of their laughter gone bitter in their mouths. The fallout came faster than I expected. Within weeks, the investigation into Grandma's accounts forced Sophia and my parents to return every dollar they had taken. My father, once so proud of his spotless reputation, now spent his days in meetings with lawyers instead of golf buddies. My mother avoided the neighborhood church, afraid of whispers that followed her into the pews. And Sophia, the one who never missed a chance to boast, went quiet. Her promotion was overshadowed by scandal, her perfect image cracked for everyone to see. But the point wasn't just their downfall, it was Grandma's peace. For the first time in years, she looked lighter, her shoulders free of a burden she should never have carried. We planted tulips together in her garden that spring. She pressed dirt into the ground with her thin hands, and I watched her smile bloom wider than the flowers ever could. As for me, something shifted. I realized that the years I'd spent silent hadn't been wasted. They'd been sharpening me. My business grew, my clients multiplied, and I finally allowed myself to enjoy what I had built. No more hiding, no more swallowing my voice. I don't know if my parents or my sister will ever truly change. Maybe they won't. But that's no longer my battle. I proved what I needed to prove with one swipe of a phone, with one lawyer's folder, with one vow kept. Family is supposed to mean love, protection, and trust. But sometimes the people who share your blood are the very ones who test you the hardest. My sister's words. You'll never amount to anything once felt like a sentence. Now they're just an echo drowned out by the life I built on my own. If you've ever been underestimated, if you've ever had to prove yourself in silence, know this, your success is the loudest answer. If this story resonated with you, share your own experience in the comments and hit subscribe so you won't miss the next one.